This is a Middle East current events update, and we want to look into specifically into two things: the aftermath of the downing of the Russian plane above the Mediterranean just from a few days ago, and that which happened earlier today in Iran, in the city of Ahvaz, where 30 people were killed in a military parade. Shiite soldiers were marching, and 4 Sunni gunmen opened fire and killed so many. And we're going to try and understand what it means to the region. So we're going to start with the aftermath of the downing of the Russian plane. So first of all, just about 2 days ago, the Israeli commander of the Air Force flew all the way to Moscow with everything, with the facts, with the numbers, with the times, with everything. And the visit of the Israeli commander, Major General Amir Norkin, actually left the Russians even more dumbfounded. And the reason why is because he basically proved to the Russians that the Israeli F-16s had nothing to do with the shooting down of the plane, because we were actually approaching landing already back in Israel when the SA-5 rocket exploded and destroyed the Russian plane. And that, of course, exposed the inability of the Syrians to deal with anything, because instead of trying to hit the Israeli planes and then stopping, all they did is just shooting rockets everywhere for at least 10-20 minutes after, so they can say later on, look, we shut down some Israeli rockets. But basically, it's their own anti-aircraft defense system that is exploding in the air. And in their attempt to just shoot everything everywhere, all around, without caring, in their attempt, they actually shut down the Russian plane. Now, why is it that the Russians are so embarrassed? It's because if the Israeli planes were there, you could at least say that the Israeli electronic warfare directed the rockets to the Russian one. But since the Israelis were not even there at the time of the hitting or the downing of the plane, it leaves only one option: that the Russian-made systems are not working well. And that brings me to another thing. A Russian military analyst called Alexander Goltz, he admitted today in a newspaper that the latest successful Israeli strikes in Syria, where the S-200, S-300, and the S-400 Russian-made air defense batteries are stationed, basically destroy the credibility and the reliability of those systems and damage the prospects of their sales. You understand that this is one of the things that Russia is counting on, is not only the spoils of war in Syria, but selling weapons to Syria and Iran and Turkey and China and others. The Chinese, by the way, who bought weapons from Russia, were right now sanctioned by the American administration for violating the sanctions on the Russians, and basically allows the Russians to be even more angry because they're not doing well financially, and now even the main source of income, of selling weapon systems, is damaged severely. So that's one of the things. Another thing is that the Kremlin decided to release their version of the story tomorrow. And the reason why they say that is this: they're very embarrassed with what happened. They prefer not to hold on to the Israeli version, that the Israeli planes were not even there at the time of the downing of the plane. So they're going to have to present a different story, and not only present a different story, but also conclude from their story what they need to do. So far, the Russians closed completely the airspace and the sea area in front of the coast of Syria, basically not allowing Israeli planes to do anything. At the same time, the Iranians are taking advantage of the situation, and at least in one case we know that a 747 landed with some advanced weapon systems unloaded off it. We, let's put it this way, we were not able to do what we wanted to do in light of the situation. And things are not going to be the same after this incident with the Russian plane. I think that this is a situation where the Russians will not allow the Israelis anymore the freedom that we used to have. And you can only imagine what's going to happen when Israel will have to say to the Russians, sorry, we're going to have to not listen to you and do whatever we need to do. Interesting. Now, this is as far as the Russians are concerned. They are not doing well. They do not like all that is happening right now. But I can tell you, folks, that we are talking about a situation like that where the Russians might have to come up with a different story. We're going to stop this, and now we move to what happened yesterday, which is earlier today here, but it was yesterday in Iran. We're talking about the Iranians that are marking the annual day of the Iran-Iraq war that started in September of 1980 and lasted 8 years. And basically, it's the war that ended up with Iran giving up. Saddam Hussein used his ballistic missiles and literally caused the Iranians to understand that if they want to win their future wars, they must start working on their ballistic missile program. And this is exactly why they are so obsessed with it. They've been already defeated once in a war that caught them unready. It's a war that 500,000 Shiites, Iranian Shiites died, and it's a war that left a big scar on the Iranians, in the Iranian mindset and culture. So, what are they doing? Like so many other Arab countries, they do military parade. And in that military parade, they're basically marching like robots, thinking that the Islamic Revolution, the Shiite Revolution, is the best thing that ever happened. They show rockets, they show other types of weapons. And I think that only the Middle East can impress people with such things nowadays. Anywhere else, it's already a facade. Nobody buys this type of a show of strength. In fact, it's a show of weakness in my eyes, if you have to parade like that. Anyway, in the city of Avhaz, which is a place that is known with its small Arab Sunni minority, 4 gunmen dressed like the Revolutionary Guard with uniforms, so you couldn't really identify them, penetrated into the area of the thousands of the marchers there, where all of them were holding guns. By the way, ever since President Anwar Sadat was killed on a military march by soldiers who marched, all over the Middle East, soldiers are marching with empty magazines to make sure they're not killing the people in the VIP section. So the magazines were empty, but the magazines were there. The perpetrators, the terrorists, had full magazines. And they came all the way probably behind the stage of the VIPs, and they started an automatic fire, heavy fire on the soldiers that were marching, to the shock of everyone. Because you have to understand, soldiers with weapon, without bullets, are marching, and other soldiers with weapons but with bullets are actually shooting at them. 30 people died. Some of them are the soldiers in the parade, but some of them are actually senior people from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that were in that VIP section over there. In that chaos, there were also a stampede of children and family members that were screaming all around. Now, the Iranians never even thought in their wildest dreams that something was going to happen. So ambulances were not even there. They were so sure. I mean, here we are, strong, and ambulances were not there. The people were vulnerable, just like they were throughout the Iran-Iraq war. And basically, people were taken to the hospitals in private cars. And it was such a great anarchy. And to the embarrassment of the Iranian regime, everything was basically on camera. In fact, I have videos of the shooting itself. I have videos of the actual chaos that is after. I will not show it to you. It's very hard to watch. But I can tell you that we're talking about Sunnis that have an open account with the Shiites and with the regime. They already took responsibility. That's the branch of ISIS in Iran that looks in Iran the root of all evil in the Middle East from a religious perspective. This Abhazi organization called the struggle, the Arab struggle to liberation of Abhaz, it belongs to a wide umbrella of Arab Sunni organizations that are the national front of resistance, of the Abhazi resistance. And it's very interesting because it's not exactly ISIS. It's a local organization. I think that everybody wished it was ISIS because that will take all the attention outside, but it's actually a local resistant group, and that is the problem of Iran. Iran is dissolving from within. It's not countries attacking it from the outside. It is its own people that are actually causing Iran to dissolve from inside. And that is why the Iranians are so embarrassed. The first thing they did is pointing the finger at the CIA and the Mossad. They're basically saying, we believe that Israel and America are behind it. But then they said something else. They actually said, 2 Arab countries around us are responsible or are behind this. They actually meant Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. Now think about it. Iran doesn't want to start a war, a direct war with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is not interested in a war with Iran. So what are they doing? The Saudis are using Sunnis in Iran. The Iranians are using Shiites in Yemen. And this one attacks the Iranian regime from within. The other one is attacking the Saudis from outside. And there is a war going on for the longest time. And the Iranians don't have a clue how this thing could have happened. So they immediately accuse the Abhazi stream that is fed by Saudi Arabia, and they're saying it's ISIS that came from Iraq and Syria. They don't even know. Today alone, they said 4 different things about who is behind it itself. And it's very, very interesting because we see that everyone that is trying to take over the Middle East eventually takes over it. And so automatically they accuse Israel and America. Then, of course, they accuse the other 2 countries, Saudi and the United Arab Emirates. And this is how this whole war is actually get more and more complicated. The Houthis in Yemen continues to shoot rockets that are most of them intercepted. But they get Iranian technology, very advanced one, and they are invading into southern Saudi Arabia and destroy military camps and take all the American weapons that they find there, and they loot it and they take it. And we can see that everybody is lying as of who is behind what over there. Now, Iran vowed to strike back decisively and forcefully. And I believe that what's going to happen is that we're going to see the pressure build up in the Bab el-Mandab in the Red Sea or the Straits of Hormuz. The Bab el-Mandab is controlled by the Yemenites, and the Hormuz is controlled by the Iran, and they basically want to hit the belly of the soft belly of the Saudis and the Americans by somehow hurting the flow of oil to those places. We know that the self-confidence of Iran was hit, not only the sanctions, but also in this particular terrorist attack. And it could not have been in the worst timing, because the rial, the Iranian rial, is now plunging. It's already 50,000 rial for $1. It is a continuing collapse of the rial, and the buying force of the people is almost nothing. They get all of their payments in rial, and the rial is not worth much. And the bitterness amongst the Iranians themselves is growing bigger and bigger. The Iranian production of oil basically sunk from 2 million barrels a day to 1 million, and maybe even less. In November, we're going to have more sanctions that are going to be imposed, and that is about the oil industry and the energy industry, and that means they will have zero export of oil, and more companies are leaving Iran right now. We just heard about companies that decided to cancel their contracts, such as Volkswagen. Can you imagine? Europe is trying to tell the Iranians, don't worry, the agreement is still going on. We're behind you. We'll make sure that the Iran deal will still be alive. And the largest car manufacturer of Germany left Iran because they're afraid that they will lose the US market because of that. And so the Iranians are just in a very, very, very bad situation. Today, the 22nd of September, was supposed to be in New York City a big meeting of the Iranian opposition called Mujahideen Halik, of 1,500 Iranian exiles. And they are being supported by several American people, American leaders. They're expecting many more people coming. And the Iranians are being embarrassed, basically, by this terrorist attack that happened on the day of this thing. We know that the Iranians try to fool the world, that they do not have military program, and that they can actually reach military grade, but if they only will have a deal with the West, everything will be fine. Well, they have been exposed. The Israelis exposed them when we showed all of their real plans. We know that all the people in the Middle East that were trying to threaten the world with the either nuclear program or the whole thing of Jerusalem or the whole thing of the Palestinian refugees, all of these balloons are being popped by the American administration one after the other. They've always threatened that the world will collapse when these things, if they will not get what they want, and now they're left without any bargaining options anymore. The Europeans are so naive; they are allowing the Iranians to just deceive them. But as you know, Israel already proved more than once that the Iranian regime is basically weak. They don't even know what's going on in their own country. if an Israeli team can get all the way to Tehran and steal within one night the entire archive of the Iranian secret program, of the nuclear program, that tells you how much they're not in control of their own people. In fact, every shipment of weapons from Iran to Syria is being intercepted and attacked by Israel and destroyed. And that's because Israel has great intelligence in the highest levels in Iran. So the Iranians are not only weak from the outside, but they're actually weak from the inside. And that is also the case of Hezbollah. That's why Hezbollah is just barking and not biting, because they understand they're in big trouble. If the mothership is suffering financially, they are also suffering big time. The American Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, just sent a warning to Iran that any attempt to hit any American target and American forces will immediately bring an American response, and a harsh one. And why do you think he said that? Because the Americans are troubled that the Iranians will try to hit their own forces in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Iraq, in northern Syria, or in Turkey. Their forces are pretty much exposed over there. There are some intelligence information, both the Americans have it, also others, that the Iranians will try to use, as they always do, some other agents on the ground to kill American soldiers, and that's how they could revenge the Trump sanctions that are literally suffocating them. And of course, because they're using locals, they will always say, we did not do it. Now, will Iran attack Israel? This is the last thing that they're thinking about right now. They have so many problems. However, they will always jump on the opportunity to be part of a coalition that might do that. They cannot do that themselves. They cannot do that alone. They're not capable right now. Can they do that if Russia is going to lead it? Sure can. And they will want to, and they will, just in order to save their skin from what is going on, divert the attention towards Israel, they will gladly do that. Now, we're watching how the Russians are humiliated, the Iranians are humiliated, the Turks are humiliated in the north with all that is going on over there in Idlib. And we're watching, ladies and gentlemen, desperate countries. And let us not forget that when countries are desperate financially, and when their ego and pride is hurt as well, war is oftentimes the best resort for them. So we're watching a very interesting thing. Israel is thriving. Israel is prospering. And all of those big players around are watching it, and they are angry. They're angry because they are collapsing. They're angry because their economies are just plunging. They're angry because their pride is hurt. They are angry because they're shown in their weakness. Their weakness is displayed to the whole world. And sometimes that's all that takes for a war to start. Now, I'm not here to play the war drums, not at all. Trust me, if there is someone who is always saying that we live in the calm before the storm, it's me. But make no mistake, the clouds, the dark clouds of Ezekiel's war that Ezekiel describes, that dark cloud that is about to come, can already be seen in the horizon. Now, there are some charlatans among Christian Bible teachers that are releasing irresponsible and false information. I just got an alert for someone who forwarded World War III, Russian planes intercepted Israeli planes. That's baloney. It's not true. It's actually cheap sensationalism, and it's not World War III, and it's not anything else. If anything, the collaboration between Israel and Russia is going on very well, And it's obvious to Israel right now that there is no point for Israel to try and operate in the skies of Syria at the moment when the Russians are not yet decided what to do in the aftermath of the downing of their plane. That's all. So when you hear those false teachers, and there are so many of them, stay away. Do me a favor. I've been using Twitter a lot. I just want to tell you something. Twitter is my next thing, is my favorite thing. Behold Israel on Twitter. I think I send 3, 4, 5 messages a day. I tweet because there's so much that is going on. And you can't go live on Facebook, on YouTube. It will be old news within about hours. Follow me on Twitter, and you'll be updated almost every few hours on the things that are happening. So one thing that happened is that the South African government decided to return its ambassadors back to Israel. They realized that they returned their ambassador during the announcement or the recognition of Jerusalem's, the move of the embassy and the opening of the embassy, of the American embassy in Jerusalem, and the riots in Gaza. They decided that's it, but they realized they gain nothing from it. They gain nothing from it. If anything, they will gain much more if their ambassador will be in Israel. So they just decided to send him back. There's so much more that I update on Twitter, such as Prime Minister Netanyahu is expected to deliver a speech at the United Nations General Assembly next week. And stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because he's going to reveal more and more things about Iran that will embarrass the Iranians and the Europeans. And so I'm going to be very much tuning into that which is going on in the United Nations next week. And I will report probably next week, probably more than twice. And we're going to look into what is going on there, because this is one of the most interesting gathering of world leaders, and it's going to be interesting to see what is going on there. So that's basically it. It's not a long update. I just wanted you to understand that. Go to check your YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. More and more and more people tell me that YouTube unsubscribe them from Behold Israel. So go and resubscribe to Behold Israel so you can watch all of our messages and get an alert on YouTube. It's important that you do that. Facebook does the same thing. They claim that they changed their interface, but on the way they unsubscribed and unfriended so many people, and they don't even know that. So check your YouTube and make sure you're subscribing or resubscribe to Behold Israel if you were and suddenly you're not. My next move from here, after I'm done with East Anaheim, I'm flying to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for a meeting, for a conference called Israel of the Bible and Israel of Today. From there, I'm going to fly to Minnesota for the Understanding the Times conference of Olive Tree Ministries and Jan Markell, together with my good friends Jack Hibbs and J.D. Farag. Billy Crone will be there, and also Eric Barger will be there. And right after that, I'll be speaking at Friendship Church in Shakopee, Minnesota on Sunday morning. It's a church that is pastored by my friend and brother and brother-in-law, Pastor Mike Golay, and that is before I'm flying back home. Thank you guys. For the Toronto people, as you know, we promised to let you know about our conference. We decided, due to the high costs of the venues in Toronto, that we're not willing to roll the high cost on the people. I truly believe with all of my heart that freely we received and freely we should give. So we found, thank God, a church, a very large church, for next year, for the month of May. And we're going to hold our conference right there next year. I'm going to give you all the details in a special Facebook announcement. But I just want you to know, this November, we're not going to hold a conference. I do not want people to have to pay $80, $90, or $100 for a conference. I want the people to be able to come and enjoy and not have to worry about how much it costs. Freely receive, and I want to freely give. And therefore, I am looking into the best option for the lowest cost that will not be rolled on people. So you can come as many as you want and not have to pay those enormous prices. It bothers me personally. I don't like to see all of those things around personally. Yes. Now, by the way, I know that the costs are big. I know that. And it's not like I think people are overcharging for nothing. But I personally believe that I should not go that path personally. And I decided to postpone the conference. We received a wonderful church. The costs are very reasonable, and we're not going to have to roll the cost on the people. So I just want you to know that in Canada, we love you, and we're going to have a conference. We already have the date. It's in the month of May of next year. We're going to release a statement with all the details, where, how much, when exactly. But this November, the conference will not take place. I'm sure you understand. I travel all over the world. I never charge money for my messages and for my teachings. If churches want to participate in the cost, they're more than willing to send Behold Israel whatever they want. If they can't, they shouldn't. But I truly believe that freely I received and freely I should give as well. Folks, thank you again for your support of the ministry. Thank you for prayers. Thank you for attending in amazing numbers all the conferences and the church services. We're expecting a full house tomorrow in East Anaheim. We're very excited about it. These are the last days. This is the last hour. And by the way, the book is sold very well. Not that I make anything of it, but I'm glad that the word goes out. It's already a #1 bestseller on Christian eschatology in Amazon, and to God be the glory. I never wrote a book, so I don't know how to make things right. I do know that God is promoting it and God is advancing it. And again, I'm not making money off this book, but I am very, very, very rich spiritually, knowing that people are blessed by it. So it's important for me that people will get it. This book has already been an inspiration for so many people to understand the Bible and to understand the plans of God. And we are very, very happy about this. So thank you again for all of your support, all of your prayers, and God bless you for what you do. Keep following us on Facebook, on Instagram, Behold Israel, on YouTube, Behold Israel, and Twitter. It's my next thing. It's my new thing. I realize how easy it is and how fast it is and how important it is. So Behold Israel on Twitter. I report few times a day. If you want to stay updated, go and subscribe and follow us on Twitter. Thank you. God bless you and shalom. And I'm going to end up with the Aaronic blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance towards you and give you his shalom, his peace. That peace that surpasses all understanding, that peace that can only be by the Prince of Peace, the Lord of Peace, who can give you peace now and forever, here and everywhere. In Yeshua's name, amen. Amen. Thank you, God bless you, and good night from Irvine, California. Shalom. Bye-bye.